Hey guys, tonight, we journey to a hillside village in 19th century Haiti, where kitchens don't hum with stoves or gas flames, but crackle with volcanic stones. You're here just before dawn, and already the scent of hot dust and crushed pepper clings to your skin. A pale haze rolls across the ground like the ghost of yesterday's fire, and somewhere up the slope a rooster crows as if he invented morning. A cooking fire sputters nearby, fed not with logs or charcoal, but with jagged porous stones dug straight from the belly of a long sleeping volcano. They're not glowing yet, give it time. The rocks need coaxing patience, and a few curses muttered in Creole under your breath. Villagers believe each one carries a little spirit inside a little heat memory of when the world boiled. And if you stack them just right with enough dried leaves and the right kind of wind, that spirit wakes up, breathes out, and helps cook your breakfast. You probably won't survive this in your modern apartment kitchen, unless your landlord's okay with magma and chicken feathers. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your local time and where you're watching from, bonus points if your oven works without lava. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing at the edge of a clearing, red dirt soft underfoot, barefoot like the rest of the sleepy villagers. To your left, a goat snorts, unimpressed with the coming day. Someone tosses a handful of cornmeal into a wooden bowl, and the scent of warm maize curls upward into your nostrils. A little girl walks by, balancing a shallow basket on her head. Inside it, a dozen gray-brown stones still dusted with ash. They're volcanic, lightweight, and full of holes like hardened bread soaked in ghost fire. These are roches de cuisson, cooking stones passed down and passed around. No two are the same. Some are as smooth as river pebbles, others sharp-edged, like they were broken in a fit of hunger. They've been gathered from the mountain paths for generations, carried down by hand, not mule, too fragile, too sacred. Villagers say you can tell a good cooking stone by the sound it makes when dropped, not a clunk, but a hollow, hungry thunk. You hear one now. Someone drops a stone near your foot and it rolls, spins, then stops and stares at you like a sleeping eye. A woman nearby is lighting a fire. Not with matches. She holds a bit of frayed cloth, presses it against a flint, and strikes until a spark leaps out like a startled lizard. The cloth smolders, the dry palm fronds catch, and soon flames dance under a ring of carefully placed stones. You watch the flames lick their bellies, hear the first hiss of air pushed out of hidden pores. She hums softly, a folk song you don't know, but it sinks into your bones like a lullaby with teeth. Maman used to say, she tells you without looking up, never trust a stone that doesn't talk back. You laugh, but she's serious. Some stones dead. Good for nothing but decoration. She gestures toward a cracked black one sitting off to the side like a sulking cousin. You bend down to examine it. Looks perfectly fine to you. Round, firm, a little chalky. But she shakes her head. No voice. She picks it up, taps it against another, then again, then listens. You try it too. Maybe you hear something, a subtle echo, a little click. Or maybe you're just sleep-deprived. Either way, she tosses the bad one aside and keeps working. As the fire grows hotter, so do the stones. They don't glow, not yet, but their color deepens from dull gray to bruised plum to something near black. You lean close, but the heat pushes you back. It's a dry heat, not smoky, more like standing too close to sun-baked asphalt. A teen boy brings over a battered tin pot and dumps in a thick mixture of coconut milk, green plantain, and chopped Scotch bonnet peppers. You blink. No measuring cups. No recipe cards. Just instincts and burned thumbs. The woman uses a stick to shift the stones, opening space like a puzzle. Then she sets the pot right on top, lets the heat rise from below, and wrap around it like a warm hand. It sizzles. The peppers release a sharp, nose-tingling scent. You sneeze once, twice. The kids nearby laugh and call you nose goat. You sit down on a log watching the heat do its work. Slowly, The villagers aren't in a rush. They never are. Cooking like this takes time, but they'll tell you it tastes better when it's made by stone. More honest, less rushed, as if the food has to earn its own flavor. You ask a quiet question: why stones and not firewood alone? An elder grins, showing teeth stained by tamarind and thyme. Because fire forgets, she says. But stone remembers. Historians still argue whether the technique came from Taino tradition's French adaptations, or enslaved Africans who learned to cook with what the land gave them. Maybe all three. Haiti's culinary history is a stew of influences, bold, complex, sometimes bitter, but always resilient, always hot. You look up. The sun's climbing, the fire's breathing, and someone hands you a cracked bowl of steaming plantain mash. You take a bite. Earthy, spicy, slightly smoky, a little rock dust maybe. You don't mind. This is how the day begins. Not with alarms, but with stone and spice. You've barely finished your first bite when a low sound rolls across the hills behind the village. Not loud enough to panic anyone, just a deep, distant mumble like the earth sighing in its sleep. No one looks up. It's not unusual. The mountains here grumble now and then, and the villagers treat it like a dog, barking in its dreams, loud but harmless. Usually. Still, you glance toward the peaks. They're shrouded in mist, which might just be morning fog. Or maybe not. Hard to tell. Haiti's mountains are dramatic like that, always a little over the top with their entrances. Somewhere up there beyond the green ridges and ash-streaked cliffs sits one of the island's many volcanic remnants. Not erupting, not recently anyway. Just waiting. The ground beneath your feet is stable for now. You shift your toes in the soft red dirt and try not to think about tectonic plates. Instead, you follow a trail toward the village's main market square. It's not much, just a flattened clearing with a few bamboo stalls, cloth canopies tied to bent tree branches, and goods laid out in woven baskets. But it's alive. A woman is shouting about yams. A boy tries to sell you something he swears is sugar but smells like glue. A group of men debate loudly about the quality of this year's coffee beans, and somewhere you're sure someone's already bartered a goat for a bottle of rum. The sounds are sharp, full of personality. You hear laughter, haggling a snide joke about someone's cooking that earns a thrown mango. The mango misses. The smells are better than expected. There's wood smoke and frying oil, sure, but also cinnamon, charred garlic, crushed thyme, and something sour-sweet you can't quite place, maybe roasted tamarind or half-burnt molasses. It's warm, overwhelming, and strangely comforting. Like walking into a kitchen where 1,000 meals have been cooked, each one whispering its own story. You pass a small stall covered in little sacks of powder, some white, some red, others green or rust brown. The vendor, a woman with more bangles than patience, explains that these are for seasoning stone-cooked dishes. Stone cooking is like courting someone stubborn, she says. You have to coax the flavor out, not just dump it in. She offers you a pinch of something bright orange. It smells like citrus and fury. You nod politely and immediately sneeze 4 times in a row. That's for goat, she tells you, grinning. Or for men who don't listen. As you recover, a crowd gathers near the far side of the square where a cart has just arrived, wooden wheels wobbling, 2 donkeys looking unenthusiastic. The cart driver hops down and starts unloading baskets filled with stones. Yes, more volcanic stones. These aren't fresh from the mountain, but cleaned, sorted, and ready for sale. You watch people approach, tap the stones, lift them, sniff them. One woman even licks one. Apparently, the best cooking stones have a certain taste even before they touch fire. You're skeptical. There's a whole taxonomy here. Large ones for flatbreads, smaller ones for slow stews, flat ones for fish, cracked ones for fast boiling. Everyone has a preference. You overhear one man dismissing a batch as too young and another swearing that only stones born under a full moon get hot enough for real cooking. Historians still argue whether these beliefs were purely symbolic or if people genuinely believed lunar timing affected stone quality. Honestly, after watching that guy bargain for a half-moon rock like it was gold, you're not sure anymore. You find yourself drawn toward the edge of the market where several people are gathered around a map sketched in charcoal on a piece of goat hide. It's not a regular map, more of a memory diagram. It marks slopes, trails, trees that never die, and places where the good stones grow. One of the elders, toothless and cheerful, tells you they're planning a gathering trip tomorrow. You ask if you can come. She nods but warns you, the mountain only gives stones to people with patient feet. You thank her and move on. Your hands are still a little gritty from the breakfast stew, and you realize everyone else here wears the same dust like a badge. Ash under fingernails, smoke in the hairstone scratches on palms. Cooking in this village is less a chore, and more a ceremony of fire time and a deep trust in things buried. You wander back toward the cluster of homes, passing a few kids kicking a roundish stone between them, like it's a football. One of them calls it the pepperstone, and claims it once made a soup so spicy, it cleared a priest's sinuses. A small boy no older than 6 stops you and holds out his hand. In it is a pebble warm to the touch. He says it's a sleeping fire, and if you whisper to it nicely, it might help you find your way home someday. You don't have the heart to refuse. You take it. The rumble in the hills sounds again, slightly closer, or maybe just more awake. The villagers still don't flinch, but they do glance at the horizon. One woman crosses herself. Another mutters a prayer in a rhythm that feels older than the church. You turn back toward the kitchens where pots are beginning to simmer, and the day grows heavier with heat. The stones are calling again. The sun has climbed a little higher, casting long syrupy beams across the village rooftops, if you can call them rooftops. Most are patched together with rusted tin banana leaves and optimism. You squint against the glare and follow the path that winds uphill toward where the gathering party is forming. They're going for more stones. You recognize a few faces from the market, one of the older women from the seasoning stall. 2 kids who might have cursed you earlier for sneezing on their tamarind, and a man whose hat is made entirely from woven palm fronds and sheer audacity. Everyone carries something: a basket, a canvas bag, or just a long thin stick to help climb. You're handed a gourd of water, and warned not to drink it all at once unless you want to boil from the inside. Charming. The trail they follow isn't paved. It isn't even really a trail. It's more like a suggestion. Worn earth, scattered stones, and zigzagging goat prints lead you up and around the village's outer hills, toward where the volcanic cliffs crouch in the distance. At first, it's all green fronds brushing your arms, vines curling like lazy snakes, mango trees, too stubborn to drop their fruit. But then slowly the trees thin. The soil turns from red to charcoal gray. Patches of fine black grit swirl beneath your sandals. You've entered another realm entirely. No one speaks for a while. Even the children fall quiet. Maybe it's reverence, or maybe they're just trying not to fall down the slope. Either way, the silence is thick, broken only by the occasional grunt and the sound of someone stepping on an unfortunately crunchy lizard. Eventually you reach the base of a ridge. It's not very tall, but it's steep with jagged edges poking out like the spines of a sleeping dragon. This, they say, is where the best cooking stones are born. You look up. The ridge glows faintly in the morning light, its color shifting from gunmetal to slate, to a kind of purplish sheen. It doesn't look hot, but the air around it carries a gentle warmth, like the breath of the mountain itself. This area, they explain, used to see little bursts of geothermal activity, a small vent here, a whisper of gas there. Never full eruptions, but just enough to toast the rocks, as the villagers say. Historians still debate whether this volcanic region was ever truly active in the 1800s, or simply carried the aftershocks of earlier centuries. Some geologists point to ancient lava tubes in the cliffs. Others claim the locals exaggerated their tales to keep outsiders away from sacred ground. Regardless of academic quibbles, you can't deny the feeling the stones here are different. One of the women crouches near a crevice, humming a tune that sounds suspiciously like the one from earlier. She brushes away dirt gently, as if revealing something alive. She lifts a stone, pale gray, lightly pocked, still cool to the touch. She taps it against another. The sound it makes is clear, almost musical. She hands it to you. It feels heavier than it looks. Solid. Like it remembers something. The woman nods. This one good for boiling fish. You blink. How do you know? She shrugs. It just is. You accept that logic. Honestly, it's better than most recipe blogs. The rest of the group spreads out. One man uses a stick to pry loose a wedge-shaped stone. A girl digs with her hands and pulls out two smaller ones that clack like dice. They're sorted into baskets by shape and size. Round ones for flat cooking, sharp ones for fast heating, ones with flat bellies for balancing pots. Some are so porous they look like hardened bread, others smooth as polished bone. A teenage boy slings a basket on his back and offers you one to carry. You agree, partly out of politeness, partly because your backpack is currently filled with exactly 0 cooking stones, and that seems socially unacceptable now. As you start to load your own basket, a sharp whistle cuts through the air. The group pauses. One of the men has found a sleeping pair, 2 stones fused together at the base, believed to be especially lucky for broths and marriage proposals. He's beaming. Others clap. Someone jokes that the last guy who used a sleeping pair got married 3 times in 2 years. You carefully place one last stone in your basket, oval-shaped, warm from the sun and lined with tiny pitted holes. Looks like it could hold heat, moisture, and possibly a small secret. You hope it doesn't explode. The descent is trickier than the climb. Stones shift underfoot, the path grows narrow, and someone behind you starts singing about how the careless always carry cracked stones. You try not to take it personally. By the time you return to the village, your arms ache, your feet throb, and you're covered in a thin layer of dust and silent pride. The children rush forward to inspect the haul. They grab the stones, sniff them, test their sounds. One girl takes a bite. You decide not to ask questions. There's a satisfaction here. A slowness. These stones weren't mined by machines. They were found, lifted, cleaned, and loved. They'll feed families, start stories, and maybe, just maybe, explode once or twice for dramatic effect. Your stomach rumbles again. Someone laughs and says, "Good." That means the mountain accepts you. By the time you've washed your face in the stream, well splashed at your cheeks with a suspiciously warm trickle of water, and wiped them with a leaf someone insists is antibacterial, you're back among the morning kitchens. This time, there's less talk and more movement. Everyone's busy prepping lunch, and the atmosphere hums with quiet determination, and the occasional sneeze caused by someone overgrating wild horseradish. At one hut, a group of women sit in a semicircle, their skirts tucked beneath them, sleeves rolled up, focused on scrubbing the stones you just hauled in. They use fibrous pads made from dried loofah, dipping them into a mixture of water ash and crushed sour orange peel. One woman sees you staring and explains stones must be clean before they earn their fire. She hands you a stone and a pad and gestures to a basin of gray water. You roll up your sleeves and begin. The stone is oddly satisfying to wash, gritty at first, then slowly smoother, until your fingers glide across it like butter on hot bread. As you scrub, the women talk around you, not to you exactly, but in a way that welcomes your ears. One tells a story about her grandmother cooking with a stone that spoke to her every time she flipped fish. Another claims she once had a pot that refused to boil until she apologized to it. You're unsure if this is metaphor or memory. A younger girl pipes up that stones shouldn't be scrubbed too clean or they forget how to burn. The older women snort but don't entirely disagree. Historians still argue whether this stone memory is symbolic folklore or something rooted in early geothermal understanding. Villagers certainly treat it as fact. You keep scrubbing. Next to you, another stone is being heated for a test boil. It sits in a simple pit, lined with ringed charcoal and carefully arranged leaves that catch flame fast but burn slow. The pit isn't deep, just enough to hold the stones and cradle the heat. You watch as a few stones begin to hiss quietly. A man taps one with a wooden spoon and nods with satisfaction. Ready. Nearby, someone carries a broad, flat stone the size of a pizza tray and places it across two rock supports. A thin iron pot goes on top, balanced just so. There's no stovetop dial, no thermometer. You listen to the change in sound, the tiny shift in bubbling rhythm, and understand the stone is the heat source, the burner, and the soul of the stove all at once. That pot, it's filled with something you can't identify at first. Thick and reddish with bubbles rising like lazy sea monsters. Someone stirs it with a long stick, then scoops a taste, blows on it, and nods. Needs more garlic, they say. Then add 5 whole cloves with the confidence of someone who fears neither vampires nor subtlety. You're handed a new task, breaking up dried plantains into chips to toast on the stones. You take your place beside an older man whose fingers are permanently stained the color of coffee. He doesn't speak for a while, just works silently, peeling and slicing. Finally he asks, "You know why we use the stones?" You resist the urge to say, "Because ovens are heavy." He doesn't wait for your answer. "Because they remember the fire. You light them once and next time they get hot faster. Like an old friend who knows your footsteps." You nod slowly. It makes more sense than you expected. He points to a small pile of stones off to the side, too small for boiling, too oddly shaped for griddles. Even those have use. They hold steam when wrapped in leaves, or keep food warm in the basket. You reach down to pick one up and feel that warmth still faintly clinging to its belly like a secret nap in the sun. A woman walks by carrying a basket of chopped herbs, chive, culantro, wild basil, and something with leaves so pungent it could probably ward off heartbreak. She sprinkles handfuls into the stew, murmuring as she goes. "You must season while the stone is speaking," she says. "Not before. Not after." Again, no recipe cards in sight. The idea is that the heat of the stone speaks to the cook. You watch as people hover their hands, listen to the hiss, adjust the spice based on scent, sound, and most mysteriously vibe. Historians often dismiss this as culinary mysticism. But when you smell the way the soup deepens right after the wild basil hits, you start to question your skepticism. You're invited to try. The flat stone beside you is ready. You place a handful of plantain slices down. They sizzle, curl slightly at the edges. Someone hands you a wooden spatula with a grip worn smooth. You flip, wait, flip again. A girl watches you silently. Finally she nods. "Not bad," she says. "A little crooked, but not bad." You beam. The stone glows faintly from within, and you wonder, is it happy or is it hungry? Lunch nears. The aromas have drawn a crowd, and people begin gathering under the broadest tree in the village, where a patchwork of woven mats waits. You take your place beside the others, a chipped clay bowl in hand, your roasted plantains resting on a square of banana leaf. The stew is ladled out, thick, fragrant, spicy enough to tickle your eyelids. You take a bite. It tastes like the morning, like heat and patience, like stone. The lunch settles into your bones with a kind of sleepy satisfaction that only comes from food cooked outdoors, over fire with time. Around you, the village breathes in unison, conversations drift lazily through the trees. Someone strums a 3-stringed banjo made from a tin can and wire, and the smell of lime peels being burned as insect repellent tickles your nose. Then, without warning, a new debate erupts. Not a fight, just one of those slow, familiar village arguments that everyone seems to enjoy more than resolve. It begins with a single question. What's hotter, charcoal or lava stone? The oldest man at the mat, who hasn't spoken since you arrived, suddenly points his spoon like a scepter. "Stone," he declares with regal finality. "Always stone. Fire can cheat. Stone never lies." A younger woman scoffs. "Charcoal gets hotter faster. Even the pot knows that." A teenager pipes in. "But charcoal burns out. Stones last. Even after the cooking, they stay warm, like a grandma's hug." Everyone nods at that. You sit back and take another bite of your spicy yam fritter while the debate simmers. The villagers begin tossing around comparisons, metaphors, and memories. One man swears he cooked an entire goat using only 6 stones and no wood, just sunlight and faith. Another counters that he once used charcoal so hot, it turned cassava into ash in minutes. Historians still argue which material gave better heat consistency in the Caribbean's 19th-century open-air cooking traditions. Some point to the energy density of hardwood charcoal, others to the unique heat retention and even distribution properties of basalt and pumice. Still others roll their eyes and say, "Just taste the stew. That's all the proof you need." Meanwhile, across the clearing, a pair of women are inspecting a fresh delivery of stones someone carried down earlier. They run their fingers over the surfaces, tap them together, and then, this is key, they listen. You move closer. One woman leans close to a particularly wide stone and tilts her ear. "Too tight," she mutters, handing it off. The next one earns a nod. "Good. This one sings." You try it. You don't hear singing. You hear rock noises, which is to say dull clicks and echoes. But she encourages you to close your eyes. So you do. Now, with your eyes shut, the sound changes. The echo feels rounder, the vibration more resonant. Maybe this is what she means by singing. Maybe you're sleep-deprived. Who can say? The villagers claim that the very best stones are the ones that come from the oldest lava flows. Stones that have cooled for centuries, have been handled, seasoned, and never broken. They're called les anciens, and some are passed down like heirlooms. Someone brings out such a stone now. It's deep black with streaks of silver from old fire lines, and smooth like worn glass. No one cooks with it anymore, it's too precious. But every cook in the village has touched it at least once. They say it gives good luck, steadies your hand, teaches your seasoning sense. You're invited to hold it. It's heavier than it looks, and startlingly warm, even though it hasn't been near the fire all day. It seems to buzz faintly in your palm, like it remembers every dish it's ever helped create. A boy nearby tells you the stone was once used to cook for a revolution. Not a whole army, he clarifies. Just the 4 guys who started the army. You raise your eyebrows. Or maybe it was used to cook for the president's brother's neighbor's uncle. Depends who you ask. You smile. That's how stories are here, layered, tangled, half true and fully sacred. While lunch winds down, you help gather the used cooking stones and carry them back toward the fire pits. Even after being removed from the flame for some time, many still radiate gentle heat. You're careful, too many fingers burned on rocks that looked cold. As one cook puts it, volcano stones don't believe in appearances. You join the process of cooling and cleaning. Stones are placed into a shallow trough filled with water, and a few sprigs of mint, not for taste, but to keep away insects. They hiss as they enter the water, releasing a final little gasp of steam. One stone cracks audibly, earning a collective ah from everyone nearby. Cracked stones can still be used, but they lose some respect. The older woman from earlier pats your shoulder. "That one died cooking," she says. "A good way to go." Another man nods solemnly. "Better than being paperweight in Port-au-Prince." You help remove the cooled stones, now slick and dark. They're stacked on cloth mats to dry, and as you brush one off with your sleeve, you notice tiny indentations. Not just natural pitting, but etchings. Symbols. Names, a child's carving. You ask about them. Some cooks mark their stones, one woman tells you, so they don't get stolen or borrowed forever. Historians still debate whether these marks were early ownership symbols or something more spiritual, charms to bind a cook's intent to the stone itself. Either way, they're beautiful. Little spirals, dots, and flourishes chipped in with nails or thorns. The afternoon stretches long and slow. Someone opens a bottle of rum. The children play a game involving balancing a hot stone on their heads. You wisely decline to join. Instead, you sit back, a stone still warm in your lap, and listen to the sounds around you. Soft laughter, wind brushing through palm leaves, And somewhere faintly, the ever-present whisper of something shifting far below the earth. The volcano sleeps, but its breath remains captured in the stones that feed this village, heat these stews, and tell stories without ever needing a voice. The sun leans westward now, casting amber shadows across the village paths and turning the ash-stained stones golden for a moment. You stretch your legs still sore from the morning's climb and glance over to where a new round of cooking is already beginning. The villagers don't waste daylight. Supper's on the horizon. 2 cooks, rivals you're told, but the kind that smile through their competition, are at the center of today's dinnertime drama. Both have staked claim to the flattest griddle stone in the village, and both insist it's their turn. The crowd watches with interest, chewing roasted breadfruit and placing informal bets. Eventually they agree to a cook-off. Of course they do. The challenge: 2 stews, 1 pot each. Only village-grown ingredients and only stones to cook with. First taste test goes to the village's oldest auntie, who's lounging under the tree with a spoon already in hand. They get to work immediately. The first cook, a woman known for her fiery temper and even fierier pepper blends, chops her herbs with terrifying precision. The second, a man whose voice is as slow as his cooking style hums while peeling onions. The village kids buzz around them, offering help in exchange for early samples. You find yourself on the man's team mostly because he seems less likely to throw a ladle if things go wrong. Both fires are already lit, stones heating like little suns under clay tripods. You notice that one cook has arranged her stones in a triangular formation, while the other has built a kind of trench around his. When you ask why, the man replies, "She wants heat. I want control." You're not sure what that means, but it sounds wise. The air fills again with the rich scent of garlic and thyme overlaid with sharp vinegar, and a curious funk that turns out to be fermented crab paste. The woman drops a whole Scotch bonnet pepper into her broth without slicing it. "Let the stone decide how much fire it wants," she says. Stone cooking, you're beginning to realize, is as much philosophy as method. As their stews bubble, a discussion breaks out among the spectators, less heated than the earlier charcoal versus stone debate, but no less passionate. This time it's about order of ingredients. Should the salt go in first or last? Does adding meat before the herbs trap flavor or waste it? Should the stone be hot before the pot is placed? Or should they warm together like old friends? One woman insists that all seasoning must be added while the stone is reaching its peak. That's when it listens best, she says. A teenage boy argues that waiting until the stone cools slightly allows the flavors to bond. It's like painting, he says. Too hot and the colors run. Historians still argue over this too, though less poetically. Some culinary anthropologists believe stone-based cooking methods were influenced by West African traditions, where timing and layering of spices was key to flavor development. Others trace it back to indigenous Taino practices, especially in how open fire heat was managed with natural materials. What's clear is that no one here is guessing. They've inherited knowledge in the muscle memory of their hands. The cook-off continues, and the scents grow almost unbearable. Your stomach rumbles, earning a chuckle from a child beside you. "That means your spirit's waking up," she says seriously. At last the stews are done. The auntie, who hasn't moved except to blink for the past 10 minutes, suddenly sits upright like a judge in a courtroom. 2 bowls are brought to her. She takes a spoonful from the first, chews, nods. Then the second. She nods again. Everyone holds their breath. She places the spoon down and declares both too salty. "I win." Then she bursts out laughing. The crowd roars with her. Both cooks accept defeat with grace, serving out bowls to the spectators and muttering good-natured insults at each other's technique. You're handed a bowl from the man's pot. It's thick, dark, filled with hunks of yam and smoky fish. The first taste punches your tongue, the second settles in, the third convinces you that supper is your new favorite time of day. Across the clearing, the firelight flickers on the stones still glowing under their pots. Someone stokes a fire. Someone else throws in a handful of bay leaves just for the smell. Music begins just a single drum at first, then a set of clacking sticks, then a young girl singing in a clear high voice about a fisherman who married a mermaid and had to learn to cook underwater. You sit with your bowl belly warm back, resting against a log. You've stopped thinking about time. The mountain behind you rumbles again, quieter this time, almost like a chuckle. And still the stones do their work. Quiet, constant. Remembering every flame, every dish, every hand that placed them in fire. They don't speak, not out loud. But you're beginning to hear them anyway. The light begins to slip subtly at first, then suddenly, as if the sun has changed its mind. Shadows stretch long across the dirt and dance on the walls of huts. You hear the change before you see it. The soft clinking of bowls being stacked. The hiss of stones being pulled from fire. The unmistakable lull that signals the shift from day to evening. After the cook-off, the village settles into its twilight rituals. People tidy up with a kind of slow rhythm, half chore, half meditation. You join in helping carry water to rinse the last of the stew pots. The pot you lift is still warm from the stones, and you feel the heat pulsing up your arms like a silent heartbeat. Children chase each other with palm fronds, giggling as they dart between mats and chickens. One girl stops mid-run to hold up a stone and announce loudly, "This one cooked the best plantain in the world." She spins once for emphasis, then drops it in a pile and darts off again. Someone nearby starts humming a tune, a soft, looping melody you've heard scattered throughout the day. It drifts through the air like smoke curling between huts and trees. It's a lullaby, you realize, and soon two voices join in, then four, then more. Nobody leads. The song simply arrives. You sit by the fire pit and watch as an older woman places the last of the stones on a woven mat to cool. They steam faintly. A few are cracked. One has blackened entirely on one side. She traces her finger over its scorched belly as though reading a story. "This one got too greedy," she says. "Tried to hold all the fire for itself." She turns to you. "Stones must learn balance just like cooks." You smile, but you're also quietly thinking how much sense that makes, more sense than some of your old cooking classes, where the closest thing to balance was arguing over sea salt versus kosher. Another woman joins you, balancing a bowl on her hip, her other hand gently placing small stones into a pouch. "These are for tomorrow's fish," she says. "We keep a few from today's fire. Let them rest." Stones cook better when they've had dreams. You don't ask for clarification. You've learned by now that some statements here exist halfway between metaphor and science. Besides, you like the idea of dreaming stones. Historians still debate whether this practice of resting the stones had any functional purpose, whether it softened their surface, strengthened their structure, or perhaps was more about respecting the materials that fed the village. Whatever the truth, the act itself carries a reverence you can feel. As night falls properly, families begin to gather around the central clearing, where a small fire has been lit, not for cooking now, but for stories. A man with a carved wooden cane clears his throat and begins. You settle in. The story is about a chicken. Not just any chicken, mind you, but one that walked into a volcano and came back out with feathers made of stone. The village children squeal and laugh. Some know the tale, others don't, but they all lean forward with the same wide eyes. According to the tale, the chicken had refused to be cooked. Every time someone tried to place her on the fire, the stones would go cold. They tried everything, more wood, more herbs, even flattery, but the stones would not heat. One day she vanished, and the next morning the stones were glowing blue, and the chicken was standing in the center, perfectly cooked on the inside, but not at all on the outside. A child gasps. She was cooked by herself, like from her own fire. The man nods solemnly. And that is why to this day we never trust a chicken that sleeps too close to the fire. You stifle a laugh, but it bubbles up anyway. It feels good. Later, someone pulls out a bowl of fried banana strips and passes them around. You take one. It's still warm, still flecked with spice, and yes, still carries a faint echo of the stone it was toasted on. You wonder how many stories like that chicken tale are passed along by flavors alone. The sky overhead is a patchwork of stars and drifting cloud wisps. No moon tonight, but no one seems to mind. The fire crackles gently. Someone feeds it a palm husk. The flame catches and throws a wave of light across the stone piles stacked nearby. And that's when someone brings up the blue stones. A boy barely 10 arms covered in charcoal smudges asks, "Is it true some stones glow blue when the mountain is thinking?" A few adults chuckle. One woman raises her eyebrows and says, "It's happened." Another shrugs. "Maybe once. Long time ago." You lean in. The tale that follows is murkier than the chicken one, full of half-truths and pauses. But the core of it. One night decades ago, a cook left her stones in the pit too long. When she returned, they were glowing faint blue, not from heat, but from something else. No one could explain it. The food tasted strange for days afterward. Some said the mountain had sent a message. Others just blamed a bad batch of wood. Historians still argue about this one too. Some mention rare minerals or gases, others point to folk memory. No one agrees. And no one has seen it since. But the village remembers. And every so often someone glances at their fire with just a bit of extra caution. Tonight the stones glow red and orange, normal, steady, trusted colors. You place your hand near one and feel its warmth echo into your bones. The night deepens. Voices soften. The stones cool. And somewhere in the background, a child's lullaby weaves its way through the village, mixing with the hiss of fire, the scent of spice, and the ever-present memory of earth beneath your feet. Dawn's first gray light slips through the cracks in the hut walls and finds you already awake, though you never really slept. Instead, you lay half-conscious on a woven mat, still tasting the smoky plantains and hearing the echo of that lullaby in your head. Somewhere nearby, someone is shifting stones, testing for warmth. Breakfast preparation has begun, and you're drawn out like a moth to a flame you can almost stand. You step into the courtyard, where 3 battered iron griddles lie perched atop low stone supports, each one a circular slab of rust-speckled metal, seasoned by years of fire. This is the heart of morning's first meal: galettes and flatbreads, baked on stone griddles heated to a simmering hiss. It's a technique you've seen in medieval Creole cookbooks, 19th-century Haitian peasants, borrowing French techniques, but making them their own. And it still makes you marvel how cultures collide on a single griddle. A woman with arms as strong as vine-twined oaks is arranging a ring of volcanic stones under her griddle, tapping each one gently to ensure they're balanced. You edge closer, inhaling the crisp scent of fermenting cornmeal. She notices you and hands you a spoonful of dough spiked with grated coconut and a dash of allspice. Feel the stones before you place the griddle, she instructs. They speak subtle warmth. You press your palm against a smooth basalt stone. It's warm but not too hot, like the back of someone's neck after a long hug. You nod, try not to snort at the comparison, and step back as she lowers the iron plate onto the stones. A hiss slides out, thin and urgent, like the clearing of an old throat. Soon the plates are sizzling. You watch as a line of dough rounds appears across each griddle. They puff and spread tiny air pockets, forming like volcanic bubbles caught in time. One girl walks behind the cook-off contestants from yesterday, prodding a griddle with a stick to adjust the heat. Too close to the edge, she says, pushing it inward. You want even bubbles. A small crowd already anticipates the results. You see the same older auntie from lunch perched on a low stump, spoon in hand, ready to deliver judgment. A boy beside her loudly declares that yesterday's cook-off loser still owes him a slice of yesterday's stew, a debt he'll collect in galettes if the loser can't deliver. The griddles cook quickly. You know from textbooks that these thin breads were staples in Caribbean diets used to stretch stews and sop up sauces, a culinary fact taught in nearly every university course on colonial cookery. Yet here, the stones beneath the griddle transform that fact into living history, each galette a soft echo of sugar plantations and mountain homesteads. The eldest cook flips her first galette with a practiced flick, sending it spinning like a frisbee before landing back on the plate. It browns evenly, flecks of coconut bracing against the hot iron. She slides it onto a banana leaf and sprinkles sea salt by hand, no scales involved. Quirky. Nonetheless, she sprinkles a pinch of ground anise seeds into her own mouth, claiming it sharpens her sense of stone rhythm. You try it too, and immediately your tongue twists into a complicated knot of licorice and surprise. Historians still argue whether anise was a Caribbean import or came via sailors from Normandy. Someone remarks nearby as if the griddle gods demanded scholarly nuance even at breakfast. Meanwhile, the previous day's charcoal skeptics gather around a separate griddle rigged with wood embers. They're determined to prove charcoal's supremacy by cooking their own version of galette. You wander over impartial until proven otherwise and see their breads are crispier, browner in patches, but lacking the gentle puff you now crave. Charcoal's like a sprinter, one man says, pointing to his crusty edges. Fast, furious, but over in a flash. He grins. Stones are marathoners. You take a bite of each. One crackles, the other sighs. Both are good. Neither is perfect. Back at the main griddles, the seasoned cook is assembling a stack of galettes into a makeshift dome, covering them with cloth to keep warm. She turns to you and says, "Stone griddles teach patience. You can't rush a stone." You nod again, suddenly feeling the weight of dawn's cool air against your warm skin, and wonder if stones really do have tempers. Maybe they do. Maybe they chafe when pushed too fast, like ancient beasts roused from slumber. A group of children sits cross-legged, forming a semicircle around a small basin of hot stones. They press flattened dough onto the stones themselves, giggling when their little breads stick and curl. A teacher-like woman supervises, laughing quietly. "They're learning to talk to stones," she says. "Soon they'll know which one wants to bake bread and which one wants to boil tea." The idea of listening to stones seems lyrical, absurd, and somehow inevitable. You remember the tapping rituals, the ear-leaning tests, the quiet confidence displayed by every cook who trusts stone over flame alone. Your belly reminds you that you too deserve breakfast. You approach the central griddle where your own galette waits on a palm leaf. You pick it up, feel its heat through the leaf, then tear a piece and dip it into leftover pepper sauce from last night, a fiery concoction left in a terracotta jar. It scorches your tongue pleasantly, the bread's gentle chew balancing the sting. You close your eyes and taste memory. Smoky nights, echoing fires, the deep resonance of stones carrying heat and history. You glance at the griddles again. The morning sun has climbed a bit, and the stones now glow a dull red beneath the iron. It's time to move on to other tasks, other meals, other stories. But you linger. Because you've learned what these griddles already knew. Cooking with volcano stones isn't just a method. It's an ongoing conversation with the earth. Every hiss, every flip, every tiny bubble is a word in a language written in heat and memory. You brush ash from your fingers, fold the last of your banana leaf, and prepare to follow the day's ritual onward. But for this moment, you simply stand still, listening to the stones speak their sizzling secrets. A few hours later, as the sun climbs toward its zenith and paints everything in that sleepy golden glaze, you find yourself drawn to a particular corner of the village, quiet or shaded, tucked behind a tangle of guava trees and clotheslines. It's here that a small circle of older women prepares for what they describe simply as the real meal. Lunch was for the belly. But this is for the memory. You're invited to sit. They're cooking callaloo, a leafy stew that looks simple at first glance, but like most things around here, carries more meaning than it lets on. It starts with thick bundles of green amaranth taro leaves, maybe some spinach if it's a lucky week, washed and crushed with salt and coconut milk. There's no blender, just a large flat stone slightly cracked in the middle, and a heavy rounded rock used like a pestle. The rhythm of it is hypnotic roll grind scrape pause. Repeat. A younger girl kneels beside the grinding stone arms, slick with green juice, a smear of leaf across her cheek. She doesn't look up as she works. "This stone's older than me," she says casually. "Maybe older than my mother." You ask how often it's used. "Every day," she replies. "If it cracks in half, we bury it." You pause. Like, in a real ceremony, she finally looks up and grins. "Of course. You think we just toss it in the bushes." You're informed half jokingly, half not, that stones that served well in the kitchen deserve a kind of retirement. Some are placed at the base of cooking trees, others slipped into riverbanks. They go back to the land, one auntie explains. They already know the way. Historians still puzzle over such rituals. Are they religious, superstitious, symbolic gestures of respect for objects that held literal fire in their bellies? The academic papers vary. But here, no one questions it. If a stone gives years of service, it should rest with dignity. The stew thickens slowly, dark green and velvet-like. The cook tosses in slivers of salted fish, a few hot peppers whole again, because letting them burst would invite chaos, and a single stone. Not a heating stone this time, but a luck stone. Oval, smooth, shiny, as if polished by 100 years of hands. It's not even hot. It just sits in the stew like a sleepy eye. You ask about it. It makes the flavor hold together. The woman says. Without it, everything slides apart. She shrugs, then laughs. I don't know why. It just works. You think about that for a while. As the callaloo simmers, the talk drifts, as it always does. Someone brings up an old cook who used to balance a stone on her head while preparing meals to remind herself to stay upright. Another recalls a time when a storm knocked out every fire in the village except one, and that fire stayed lit because its stones were from the jealous side of the mountain. You're not sure what that means, but it sounds convincing. Someone else mentions a woman who cooked so well her stones used to hum when she walked by. That earns a few raised eyebrows and skeptical looks, but no outright dismissal. Maybe they liked her, one woman says. And that's the end of the matter. The callaloo is ready. You watch as it's ladled into bowls, dark green, steaming, trailing ribbons of coconut and pepper into the air. You're handed a piece of root bread to go with it, still warm from a griddle, still bearing the faint stamp of the stone it was cooked on. You tear off a bite, dip it into the stew, and let it sit on your tongue. It's earthy, rich, slow. You taste the leaves, the salt, the smoke. But you also taste time. Layers of it. Like the stones pass something to the stew, not just heat, but memory. Across from you, one of the older women reaches into her apron and pulls out a tiny, smooth pebble. She holds it up between thumb and finger. "This one was in my mother's pocket the day she taught me to cook," she says softly. She said it helped her remember the salt. Everyone nods. A quiet moment follows, not sad, just full. Like the pause before a final bite of something too good to rush. You stay with the women a while longer, helping to rinse out the bowls, listening as they debate whether young cooks today trust their stones too quickly. One says the stones should be tested in 3 pots before being trusted. Another insists the true test is whether the stone makes a stew cling to the spoon just a little too long. There's a kind of poetry in it all. Nothing written. No manuals. Just passed down gestures, choices, timings. You realize no one here thinks of cooking as a task. It's closer to worship. Or at the very least performance art with a cast of stones, fire hands, and breath. By the time you stand and stretch, the sun has dipped behind a thick stretch of clouds. It's cooler now, and someone tosses a handful of orange peels onto the fire, releasing one final bloom of scent into the air. You find your way back through the village slowly. A child runs past carrying a basket full of warm stones. Someone else waves you over, offering a slice of baked yam with honey drizzled on top. You take it, bite into it, and nod without words. Because once you've eaten with stones, the conversation never really ends. Just before dusk settles in for good, you wander toward the edge of the village where the path fades into brush and low shrubs, and finally disappears under the base of a rocky slope. The smoke from dinner fires curls into the sky behind you, but ahead just silence. Not the kind that feels empty, the kind that hums. You've followed a group of children barefoot and determined, each carrying a round stone tucked under one arm. "We're playing," one tells you with a grin. "The stone game." Another adds, "It's not really a game. It's a test." They lead you to a flat clearing where the dirt's been worn down to a smooth, sun-baked surface. A ring of small white stones marks a circle about 10 feet across. In the center stands a single black cooking stone perched on a palm leaf like a jewel in a crown. The rules you learn are simple. Each player must balance their stone atop the center, one flat side down. If your stone falls, you're out. If it stays, you win a dried banana chip, or at least the bragging rights, which are apparently more valuable. The kids line up and take turns. Some place their stones carefully like sacred offerings. Others plop them down with too much force and watch them tumble dramatically. The laughter is loud, the stakes low, and the sun slips lower on the horizon. You're invited to try. Your stone is oddly shaped, a bit lopsided, not the best candidate for balance. You crouch down, tongue slightly out in concentration, and lower it slowly. You hold your breath. Release. The stone teeters, wobbles, and somehow stays. The group erupts in cheers. Your prize, a small bundle of dried mango, and the honorary title of Stone Whisperer. One kid ties a string of leaves around your wrist like a bracelet. You feel absurdly proud. As the game winds down, the children begin telling stories, half-truths, full exaggerations, and tales passed down like kitchen secrets. One boy claims his grandfather once cooked an entire goat on a single stone the size of a coin. A girl insists her aunt had a stone that, if placed under your pillow, gave you recipes in dreams. Another swears she saw a stone levitate once, just once, during a full moon. You chuckle, but no one here is really joking. A boy plucks up the central stone, holds it high, and announces in mock ceremony, "This is the heart of the volcano. Whoever controls it controls the kitchen." Another yells, "No. That's the stirring stone." A brief chaotic skirmish ensues involving banana leaves and gentle whacking. The central stone tumbles to the ground with a hollow clack. And just like that, the game ends. The children scatter like ash on wind, running back toward the village barefoot and laughing. You linger. You pick up the fallen heart of the volcano. It's warm. Not from sun, not from fire, just warm. Like it remembers being important. You think again of what the elder said earlier. Stones that serve well deserve rest. You place the rock back gently on its palm leaf. Pat it once, yes really, and walk on. By the time you return to the village, torches flicker to life. No harsh bulbs, no humming electricity, just soft firelight bouncing off walls and cheeks. People sit in small clusters, bowls in hand, voices low. You hear the clink of spoon against clay, the soft scrape of a stone being shifted near the fire for tomorrow. And then someone tells a different kind of story. A man barefoot with a wide straw hat and a lazy grin begins to speak in that low, steady rhythm of practiced storytellers. He talks about the first stone, not the one that fell from a volcano, but the one that fell from a star. He claims it burned cold, that it could cool soup in seconds, that it was so smooth birds refused to land on it. The children are wide-eyed. The adults pretend to scoff, but lean in just the same. Historians still argue, the man says with a wink, whether that starstone ever existed. But I say, look up. The sky's missing something. The group murmurs, then falls quiet. After the tale, someone brings out a plate of thin coconut cakes, baked on flat stones earlier cooled under damp cloth, and now sweet with honey and nutmeg. You take one. The first bite is soft, grainy, comforting. A girl beside you whispers, "They say if you eat too many you'll dream about talking rocks." You grin. How many is too many? She narrows her eyes. 2.5. Then she walks away with 3. You take a second. Then a third. Just to be safe. Nearby a small stone circle glows gently in the sand. It's not for cooking tonight, it's ceremonial. A way to honor stones that crack today, stones too old for firestones who've done their part. A quiet moment passes as someone drops a tiny dried flower into the center. Not a word is said, just the fire crackling, the hum of crickets, and the breath of 100 years. The stars appear slowly, cautiously, like they're testing the temperature of the sky. And you, sitting with your fingers sticky from coconut and stone memory, realize that in this village food is not just food. It's history, it's ritual, it's geology warmed by love. It's also a pretty good reason to eat another cake. As night deepens, the village quiets, but never entirely. A few fires still smolder. Somewhere a spoon taps rhythmically against a clay bowl, not out of necessity, but habit. You hear it like a heartbeat, soft, steady, endless. You're drawn to one of the remaining cooking pits, where a man is preparing a broth that, as he puts it, tastes like yesterday, today, and a little bit of tomorrow. It's a late meal for the night watchers, those who tend the fires, guard the goats, or simply can't sleep. He calls it soup vale, the watching soup. You ask what's in it. He shrugs. Bits of everything. Mostly stories. Still, you see the ingredients: scraps of cassava bread, a curl of dried goat, handfuls of leafy greens, a pinch of black salt, and yes, 3 small volcanic stones placed directly into the pot. Not for heating, for flavor. You raise an eyebrow. He chuckles. Each stone holds a memory. One from a wedding, one from a funeral, one from the day the mangoes ripened early. He stirs slowly. It matters. You settle on a low stool beside the pit. The smell rising from the pot is unusual, earthy, smoky, faintly metallic. It smells like old paper, toasted cloves, rain on dust. Like something your great-grandmother might have made if she lived on a mountain and carried secrets in her apron. He hands you a bowl. It's hot, heavier than expected, and the first sip is confusing. Then warming. Then deeply familiar. You can't quite name any flavor in it, and yet every part of you insists you've tasted it before. That's the stones, the man says, as if reading your thoughts. They remind your tongue what your mind forgot. You blink. Do you always talk like that? He grins. Only when the moon's hiding. And sure enough, the moon has tucked itself behind a curtain of mist, leaving only stars to light the path between you and your bowl of edible memory. He tells you more as you eat, about how some families keep a small pouch of cooking stones passed down through generations, tiny ones for tea or rice, marked with notches or tied with red thread. He says one woman down the hill used to travel with 5 stones wrapped in a scarf. Wouldn't cook without them. Said other stones were too nosy. Historians still argue whether this was widespread or more localized, if stone pouch traditions were regional quirks or part of a broader cultural practice. Some say the act was more spiritual than culinary, a way of anchoring identity in the face of upheaval and change. The man leans back. You know why we never use the same stone twice in a row. You shake your head, because no dish wants to be compared to its sister. You laugh loudly, unexpectedly. He smiles, too proud of the joke. The fire dims. He places the lid back on the pot, but the stones stay inside, still steeping. They're dreaming now, he says. Learning what they'll cook tomorrow. You sit with that thought. After a moment, someone else approaches, a younger woman carrying a satchel of oddly shaped stones. She places them on a mat and begins sorting them by touch. Alone, eyes closed. One by one, she taps each stone, turning them gently, whispering something under her breath. You ask what she's doing. Picking the morning stones, she replies. She explains, barely opening her eyes, that certain stones have intentions. Some cook fast, some slow. Some bring out spice, others keep bitterness at bay. There's no science to it, she says. It's about feel. The echo in the palm, the temperature in the fingertip. You're handed a stone. It's cool, slightly pitted, unusually oval. What's this one's intention, you ask? She smiles. This one waits. You don't know what that means, but somehow it feels true. You hand it back, but she shakes her head. Keep it. See if it finds you when it's ready. You tuck it into your pocket like a pebble from a dream. The village is near sleep now. Dogs stretch, fires dim, the last bowls are rinsed in silence. Someone plays a slow rhythm on a wooden drum, just fingers, no sticks. The beat fades in and out like a heart forgetting and remembering itself. Before you leave the circle, the man at the pot gives you one final piece of advice. Never cook when angry. The stones know. You nod. And never trust a stew that boils too fast. He winks. You leave the fire circle with your breath fogging in the cool air, your belly full. Your pocket weighted by a stone that apparently knows how to wait. The path back to your hut is dim, lit only by fireflies and memory. You pause halfway and look up. The stars shimmer. One blinks brighter than the others. And for just a moment you wonder, did that boy earlier really see a floating stone under a full moon? Did someone once carve recipes into basalt? You reach into your pocket, touch the waiting stone, and smile. In this village, everything cooks slowly. Even your thoughts. Morning again. Not sharp or urgent. No alarms. No buzz. Just the slow stretch of light across woven walls, and the familiar scent of ash and spice already blooming in the air. You roll onto your side and feel the lump of the waiting stone in your pocket. It spent the night next to you, quiet as promised. Outside, the world is moving but softly. A rooster crows somewhere in the distance, delayed, perhaps reconsidering its performance after yesterday's particularly loud morning. You step out and the air is brisk, not cold, just aware. You follow the now familiar trail toward the cooking huts. Today's breakfast is humble flat cakes again, but this time with a new twist: dried cassava blended with river salt and mashed breadfruit. A kind of morning starch that sticks to your ribs and your teeth in equal measure. You volunteer to help. A woman hands you a bowl, a paddle, and a stack of small heating stones arranged neatly on a bamboo tray. She gestures toward a fire already dancing. Stones are rested. Ready now, she says. You think of the stone in your pocket. Still not ready, apparently. She shows you how to lay the stones, the largest in the center, with smaller ones radiating outward. Like a sun, she says. Fire listens to circles. You place them carefully, feeling the heat rise in small breaths. Not fierce. Gentle. Trusting. Like a nap in progress. Then comes the pot. A squat clay vessel with a cracked lip and smoke stains halfway up its sides. Good scars, she mutters. Means it's done hard work. She sets it atop the stones and pours in water, waiting for the first bubble to appear, like a secret about to spill. You stir the mixture of cassava and breadfruit, then add grated coconut and a touch of dried lime zest. The scent rises immediately, fresh, sharp, with a base note of earthiness that feels older than your lungs. You taste it with your finger. It's bland. The woman nods. Let the stone wake up. Flavor comes later. There's something calming about this waiting. You're used to rushing breakfast, burnt toast, and news headlines, maybe coffee sloshed into a travel mug. But here you wait for rocks to remember how to burn. You wait for water to invite flavor into its folds. Across the compound, a group of young cooks are gathered in a circle around a shallow basket of problem stones. You're told these are the ones that don't heat evenly, or crack too quickly, or simply refuse to settle under the pot. Stubborn, one boy says, flicking a pebble like it insulted his soup. Instead of discarding them, they play a kind of diagnostic game, tap each stone with a stick. Listen to the tone. Guess what went wrong. The older cook nearby calls it stone whispering. You try it. The stone you test gives a dull, low click, less musical, more uncertain. Still learning, says the boy beside you. He tosses it gently into a basket labeled with a charcoal-smudged leaf, maybe later. Historians still argue whether this hands-on testing method had practical roots or was mostly symbolic. Could sound really predict a stone's behavior in heat? Or was it more about ritual, the rhythm of knowing an object by touch, by ear, by story? You finish your stirring, and the woman adds a final pinch of salt. She watches the pot a moment, then removes it from the stones and sets it to rest on a leaf-covered board. "Let it think," she says. It's a phrase you've heard before. And now somehow it makes sense. Letting the food settle, the flavors meet the steam, turn to memory. While it rests, she walks you to a shaded corner of the village. There, under a canopy of vines, sits an old wooden table covered with cooking stones, each one etched with symbols, marks, even faces. "This is our archive," she tells you. "Stories we don't write down, we carve them." You lean closer. Some of the stones have dates, others just drawings: a fish with 3 eyes, a star with arms, a spoon hovering over fire. One has a simple spiral so fine it could have been scratched with a thorn. Another features a chicken bold, proud, and clearly mid-cluck. "These are event stones," she says. "Special meals, big moments, hard winters, good harvests. When you cook with one of these, you remember that day. You ask if the stones ever get reused." She smiles. "Not for regular food. These are memory tools now. You don't throw memory into the stew unless you need it." You notice a stone that looks newer, less worn, more recently carved. It has no symbol, just a single shallow groove. You point to it. "That one," she says, "is waiting for its story." You pull the waiting stone from your pocket. She sees it and nods. "Might be that one's twin." You place it on the table next to the grooved stone. They sit there side by side, not touching, but somehow aware of each other. "Let's see what kind of meal gives it a name," she murmurs. Back at the fire, your pot has cooled slightly. You taste the mix again, now rich, nutty, with a strange harmony you didn't notice before. The woman nods. Stone woke up. You serve it in small leaf bowls to a passing group of laborers. They eat quietly, smiling heads, nodding. No words are exchanged, but you feel them thinking, "Yes, this is how it should taste." You sit with your empty bowl, watching the morning stretch toward noon, and realize that for the first time, you're not just observing. You're part of the recipe now. You didn't plan on staying this long. But the days here aren't built for scheduling. They unfold one after another, like simmering broth, each moment steeping into the next without hurry. The heat, the smells, the lazy clatter of spoons in stone pots, they lull you into a rhythm that makes the outside world feel distant, almost fictional. This afternoon, you're helping prepare pois Congo, a thick stew of pigeon peas, garlic, onion, bay leaf, and just enough pepper to remind your sinuses who's boss. The base is simple, but as always, the method is everything. The key, you're told, is how the heat rises through the stone pile. Not fast, not straight, but in little puffs like steam breathing from below. You're kneeling beside a woman who everyone calls Manmi Ju, even though she's likely younger than half the cooks here. Her stone hearth is deeper than the others, built with a kind of trench system underneath. She explains that it channels heat sideways before it lifts, creating what she calls the long fire. Like gossip, she adds with a wink. It spreads before it shows. She positions her volcanic stones carefully. 3 large ones on the bottom. 2 flatter ones nestled between. A final one, round and dark, on top. Then the pot. The fire she builds is modest. Not wild. No leaping flames, just low, patient flickers. Stones don't like to be surprised, she says. They like to know what's coming. You stir the peas. They bubble slowly, reluctantly. The smell of caramelized onion and thyme begins to float out like a memory being coaxed from a dream. Historians still argue, Manmiju says as she reaches for the salt, whether we copied this method from the French or taught it to them first. She shrugs. Either way, we got the better food. The stew is thickening, turning glossy. She drops in a stone, yes, directly into the pot. This one is small, oval with a black line running through it like a vein. For anchoring, she explains, so the flavors don't fly away. You've stopped questioning these things. The pot simmers while a young man arrives with a bundle of herbs tied in twine. He kneels beside you and starts plucking leaves, sniffing each one like he's checking for secrets. You ask what he's doing. Smelling for memory, he says. Some leaves only work when the stone is ready. You glance at the bubbling pot, then back at him. How can you tell? He lifts a single basil leaf and crushes it gently between his fingers. The scent is strong, clean, sharp. This one's awake, he says. He drops it into the pot. Somewhere across the clearing, a girl begins to sing. Not a lullaby this time, a work song. Slow and rhythmic. You don't recognize the words, but the tune settles in your ribs like steam. As you listen, you help prepare small bundles of titoya dumplings made of flower herbs and stone-warmed coconut water. They're wrapped tightly in plantain leaves and placed directly onto flat heating stones to roast. You use tongs carved from palm wood to flip them every few minutes. One pops open with a gentle hiss. The scent is nutty sweet and slightly toasted. You bite into it and understand why someone earlier said it tastes like the inside of a warm pocket. Next to you, a girl no older than 8 is heating a tiny pot of tea, lemon balm and star anise on her own private circle of stones. She's concentrating fiercely, nudging each stone with a stick until it's exactly right. You ask if she learned from her mother. No, she says. My grandmother's ghost taught me. You blink. She giggles and walks away. As the Pwa Congo stew finishes cooking, Manmiju ladles it into bowls and covers them with cloth to rest. The bowl must hold the heat like a secret, she says. Then she begins cleaning the stones. You expect water and scrubbing. Instead, she uses crushed charcoal mixed with citrus juice and a hint of ash. This way, they forget the last meal and open themselves to the next. You help, dabbing gently at each surface, the scent of lime and smoke filling the air. The boy who tested herbs earlier leans over. Some say this keeps the stones from dreaming too loud. You tilt your head. What happens if they do? He grins. You wake up with recipes you can't read. After cleanup, you follow a few cooks toward the edge of the compound, where a small lean-to covers what looks like a graveyard of old stones, cracked, blackened, worn smooth from years of use. Each one rests on a mat labeled with a name or symbol carved into its side. This is the stone bed, someone tells you. They don't go back to the mountain. They stay near us. They've done too much to leave. You touch one gently. It's cool, but you swear it hums. Later, as twilight settles in again, and the breeze carries scents of ginger and burning lemongrass, you sit beside a fire with your own stone, the one that waits. You hold it warm, it in your hands. It hasn't asked anything of you. It just is. Heavy, patient, still. You place it near the fire, not in the fire. Just close enough to listen. And maybe tonight it will begin to remember. Darkness has arrived again, but it's softer this time. Gentler, like the village has grown accustomed to your presence and decided to dim the lights just for you. Tonight, the air carries the scent of roasted peanuts and simmering tamarind. The fires burn low, not in haste, but in reflection, like flames content to glow rather than perform. You find yourself seated near the elders' circle, where stories are told slowly, sometimes paused midway, and resumed the next night as if time itself has learned to wait. You cradle your warm stone in your lap. No one has asked about it, but you've caught a few knowing glances. The kind that say, ah, you're holding it now. Tonight's story begins with a cough, an old man clearing his throat, not out of illness but ceremony. He leans forward, lifts a ladle full of hot millet porridge from a clay pot resting on 3 ancient stones, and begins. It started with a storm, he says. Always does. Lightning cracked the mountain open, and the rocks that fell were red with memory. He pauses, dramatically slurps his porridge, and continues. The first cook to find those stones didn't use them for food. She used them to warm her feet. And then one day her soup refused to boil unless the stones were near. So she placed them under the pot, and the water sang. The listeners nod. No questions, no contradictions. Everyone understands that here truth and myth are old roommates who share stories and occasionally switch names. The man continues. They say those first stones were never lost. Just scattered. Carried by cooks who wandered. Some ended up in the sea, others in temples. One in a goat's stomach. But now and then one returns. When it's time. He looks directly at you, not unkindly. You glance down at the stone in your lap. It doesn't glow, it doesn't hum. But it feels heavier than before. Not in burden, more like meaning. Later, you help prepare the night's light meal: toasted cashews with piment, and mashed yam fritters fried on smooth flat stones. You've earned enough trust now that no one supervises your fire circle arrangement. You do it carefully, placing each stone like a piece in a puzzle. You've come to realize that no 2 circles are ever the same. It's not about symmetry. It's about flow. The fire catches. You hear the pop of oil, the hiss of batter, the whisper of heat rising from the stones like a memory trying to reassemble itself. Someone nearby offers you a bit of grated ginger mixed with cane syrup. For night strength, they say. You take it. It burns sweetly down your throat, leaving behind a slow fire in your chest. The fritters cook quickly. You flip them with the back of a wooden spoon, just like you've been shown. Not rushed, not slow, just right. A girl walks by balancing a basket of sliced mangoes. She tosses one into your hand without breaking stride. You nod your thanks. She disappears into the shadows with a chorus of giggles. The cook next to you watches your work and murmurs, "You've got the heat hand now." You blink. "What's that?" She shrugs. Some people fight the fire. Others feel it. You don't say anything, but you smile. Once the food is ready, you carry your plate to the edge of the clearing, where the old woman from the carving table sits with her memory stones. She's rubbing oil onto one of them with a cloth soaked in pepper-infused water. The stone gleams. It's not a showy shine, more like the glint of old eyes that have seen plenty and needn't say much about it. She gestures to the space beside her. You sit. She doesn't speak at first. Just hums one of those same quiet kitchen melodies that follow every flame in this village. Finally, she points to your stone. "Is it yours yet?" she asks. You hesitate. "Maybe." She nods. "You'll know when it tells you what to cook. You consider this. And if it never speaks?" She smiles faintly. "Then maybe you were the one meant to listen." You both fall silent, watching the flicker of fire against the curve of a cooling pot. You swear you can hear the stew inside settling into its final flavor, as if every bubble is a sigh of agreement between the ingredients. Somewhere a dog barks. Then nothing but crickets. You look up. Above, the stars have returned, not scattered, not shy. Bold tonight. Confident. One of them pulses brighter than the rest. You look down at your stone. Still no glow. Still no hum. But as you place it gently beside you near the warm earth, you notice your fingers linger. You're not ready to let go. That's when the older woman speaks again. "Stones don't need to glow to be ready," she says. "They just need to wait until someone chooses to trust them." You sit there a while longer, letting the warmth of the night fold around you like a blanket stitched with breath, spice, and ash. And all the while the stone waits, as it always has, as it always will. The next morning arrives not with a rooster, but with the clatter of a pot lid falling onto stone. It echoes across the village like a gong rung by accident, and no one even flinches. Life here begins with sound, not alarm. You rise from your mat, stretch the weight from your limbs, and feel the now familiar pull of warm earth beneath your feet. Your stone is still by your side, still quiet, still yours. You tuck it into your satchel without thinking. Today, the air tastes like lemongrass and soaked lentils. A light mist floats over the hills beyond the village, and for the first time you notice the mountain in full view, not towering or violent, but slow and sprawling like an old god lying on its side watching over things with half-closed eyes. Your feet take you to the far side of the cooking yard, where a small group of men and women are preparing to roast plantains on a series of stones that resemble flattened river boulders. These aren't the pitted, jagged lava rocks you've been working with. These are smooth black wide like they were poured from the earth's mouth just for this purpose. You ask one man where they came from. Up the hill, he says, where the earth once burped. These came down smooth. We just listened. He places a sliced plantain directly on one. No oil, no pan, just fruit on fire-heated stone. It sizzles lightly and begins to brown. The smell is sugary, almost floral. You're handed a bowl of sliced okra to prep. Not for the roast, no, the okra's for a separate stew that will be poured over the plantains later. You help slicing the pods, carefully removing the seeds with the tip of your fingernail. A woman beside you hums the okra song, an actual song, apparently something about slipperiness and patience. It rhymes in a way that only makes sense in Creole. While you cook, a conversation starts among the group about a recipe that was supposedly lost long ago, something involving goat orange peel and crushed coral. One cook insists his uncle made it every year until the coral became too difficult to grind. Another says no such dish ever existed. You're thinking of the sea spice curry, she laughs. That had snail shell, not coral. The debate spirals, as all culinary debates do, into friendly mockery and wild storytelling. Historians still argue over whether Haitian Highland cuisine during the 1800s was as seafood-heavy as coastal dishes, or if those stories reflect later mixing of regional practices. Some claim mountain dwellers never touched sea ingredients. Others suggest traders brought powdered shellfish inland in clay jars, so potent that a single spoonful flavored a whole pot. Back at the plantain stones, the fruit is flipped its bottom side, now perfectly charred in a grid pattern that looks almost deliberate. The surface of the stone glistens with natural sugars, and the scent is familiar. Like holidays, or relief. Each person prepares their dish differently. Some mash the plantains immediately and sprinkle them with sea salt and chili flakes. Others layer them with beans, okra, and a drizzle of fermented lime sauce. One girl pours thick coconut cream over hers and calls it breakfast for dreaming. You try that version. It tastes like soft thunder, sweet and grounding. A meal that insists you sit down, shut up, and chew slowly. Beside you, someone is feeding their stone. Yes, feeding. They dab a mix of oil and crushed herb paste into a small crevice on its surface. Keeps it alive, they explain. You treat your stone well, it listens better. Stays hot longer. Doesn't crack when you need it most. You wonder about the cracked ones you've seen carefully stacked under lean-tos, or buried beneath cooking trees. You ask what happens when a trusted stone breaks mid-meal. The cook nods solemnly. Depends on the crack. If it's clean, we give it rest. If it splinters, sometimes that's a warning. Means something was cooked with a lie. You glance sideways. A lie. She grins. Someone pretended to love who they were cooking for. You laugh, but you don't dismiss it. In this place, even the stones know how to listen for sincerity. After the morning meal, someone calls everyone to the edge of the yard. A new stone has been found, brought down from the hills just this morning by two boys with scrapes on their shins and enormous pride in their eyes. It's round, bluish-gray and perfectly smooth. The village gathers to inspect it. No one lifts it right away. First there's discussion. Where it came from. How it sounded when tapped. what it felt like to carry. The elder with the carved cane asks it a question quietly, almost under his breath. You don't hear the words, but you see how the rest of the group pauses after. Then, with great care, someone places it on a square of woven cloth and pours water over it. The water hisses even though the stone isn't hot. Everyone murmurs. It's awake, someone whispers. They decide to test it that evening. You find yourself part of the team chosen to clean it, prepare it, introduce it to the fire. It's an odd honor for a visitor, but then again, you've been here longer than you expected. You wash the stone with lemon, then ash, then rinse it in a stream behind the huts. It's heavier than you imagined. And when you hold it, it does feel different. Denser. Full of something. Later, when the sun begins its slow dive behind the mountain's shoulder, you bring your warm waiting stone from your pocket, the one that's been silent, still. You hold it near the new one. They don't sing, they don't rattle, but they feel content. Like two old strangers meeting and recognizing something in each other. And as the fire is lit, and the new stone is placed in the circle, you feel for the first time that your stone might be ready too. Or maybe it was always waiting for this moment. Evening descends, not with ceremony, but with familiarity. No one gasps when the sun dips. No one points. The shadows just stretch, the firelight thickens, and the stones begin to glow again. Tonight is a test. The newly found stone, the one washed and placed on a cloth with reverence, now rests at the center of the cooking circle. Around it, elders, experienced cooks, cautious children, and you cradling your own waiting stone in your lap like a warm bowl of tea. You've been invited to help, but not to lead. New stone, they say, needs old hands. The oldest woman in the village steps forward, her walking stick clinking against the edge of the fire pit. She doesn't speak much, but when she does, everyone listens. Tonight she hums. Just a few notes. Low, steady. Not a song exactly, more like a call. Then the cooking begins. The dish chosen for the test is a thick traditional vegetable stew, nothing too fancy. That's on purpose. You don't give the new stone your best recipe, one man explains. You let it earn it. The stew starts with chopped yam, green plantain, and chunks of pumpkin layered into a pot with water already warm from another fire. It's transferred onto the new stone, which has been resting over coals for an hour now. As soon as the pot touches it, the first crackle echoes out. Everyone leans in. The heat is steady. The pot settles evenly. The stew begins to bubble. You feel the entire village exhale at once. You're asked to season the pot. Just a pinch of salt, some chopped chive, one bruised pepper dropped in whole. No stirring. Not yet. The stone will stir from below. You believe it now. Meanwhile, someone places your own stone, your little silent companion, into the outer ring of the fire, nestled just close enough to warm without stress. Let it watch, the woman says. It will decide for itself. The stew continues to thicken. The scents roll upward, earthy, slightly sweet, with a tang of fermented garlic that makes your mouth water. The new stone shows no cracks, no spit, no signs of resistance. Just quiet work. The old woman nods. Then someone begins to tell a story. It's about a boy who once tried to cook using nothing but cold stones. He thought fire was overrated. Tried to will the heat into being. Of course, the pot stayed cold. His stew turned sour. The stones cracked from insult. The lesson: heat needs more than heat. It needs intention. The story gets a few laughs. Some groans. One eye roll. But it sticks with you. You realize no one here teaches with lessons. They teach with food, fire, and fable. Historians still argue whether Haitian cooking circles like this one date back to pre-revolutionary rural communities, or evolved later from shared labor traditions. Some call them practical, others call them sacred. But here in this village, they're just what's done. As the stew nears completion, someone carefully lifts a piece of squash with a wooden spoon and presses it against the side of the pot. It yields instantly soft ready. You may stir, the elder says. You're handed the spoon. It's not a grand gesture. It's quiet, like turning the page of a well-worn book. You stir gently, folding the vegetables into one another, watching the liquid shift and glisten. The fire snaps. The pot hisses. And your quiet stone, gives off a soft tick as it warms beside you. You glance at it. It's glowing slightly. Not bright. Not showy. Just present. You keep stirring. The stew is ladled into small bowls made from hollowed calabash gourds. One is placed beside your stone as if to share the moment. You take your own and eat in silence. The taste, perfect. Not bold. Not explosive. But whole. Like everything inside decided to agree. The new stone passed its test. Your stone remains beside you, still warm, still quiet, but it no longer feels like it's waiting. It feels like it's listening. A girl sits beside you and asks, "Did your stone speak?" You think, "No," you say. "But I think it heard me." She nods solemnly. That's how it begins. A drum beat starts nearby, slow, steady, thoughtful. Not a dance rhythm. A rhythm for digestion. For reflection. For finishing the day. You sit back full and tired, your legs stretched out beside the stone. You can feel its heat against your shin. Not burning. Just reassuring. Others drift off to their huts or hammocks. The fire dims. One by one the stones are pulled from the heat and laid gently on cloth or sand. Like old tools. Like elders. Like memories being folded into place. You place your stone on its own patch of cloth and it doesn't resist. It rests. For now. The next morning, the village wakes to mist so thick it feels like soup left out overnight. Cool, quiet, soft around the edges. Even sound behaves differently. The usual rooster crows, but his voice is muffled as if wrapped in gauze. Children don't run yet. Fires aren't crackling. It's as though the stones themselves have asked everyone to start slow. You sit beside your fire ring, now cold, and run your fingers over your stone still nestled on its cloth square from last night. It's no longer just warm. It's willing. There's a stillness in it, but not silence. More like readiness. You rise. Today's lesson is bread. Not the soft, fluffy kind you might find in a bakery window. This is pendiri, a dense, rice-based flatbread, meant for travelers, for field workers, for endurance. Made from soaked rice mashed with a mortar, a bit of salt, a touch of ground ginger, and patted flat between two leaves. It cooks directly on heated stones. No pot, no griddle, no oil. You ask if you can use your stone. Everyone pauses. Then the elder woman with the carved cane gives a single nod. Let's see what it remembers. You set it into your circle. You build the fire slowly, dry bark, curled palm strips, small twigs. You remember the rhythm now. Heat doesn't start with flame. It starts with patience. The first lick of fire meets the bottom of your stone, and you feel it rise, not a surge but a breath. The dough is prepared beside you. Pounded rice, soft as clay, flecked with salt and pepper. You take a scoop, shape it into a disc, press it flat between two banana leaves, then lift the top leaf and place the disc onto your stone's now hot surface. It hisses. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a gentle sound of agreement. You do another, and another. A small crowd gathers. They don't hover, just linger nearby, hands full of herbs, baskets of peppers, soft voices speculating. One man bets your bread will burn. Another says it'll cook too fast. The elder woman merely says, "We'll taste it, and know." The bread darkens slowly. You watch for bubbles, edges lifting. You flip it with a flat stick, and the underside is golden brown, crisp, but not hard. The second side finishes faster. The heat has evened. Your stone has found its rhythm. The first piece is handed to the elder. She breaks its steam rising from the center and takes a bite, She chews. Once. Twice. Then she says, "It tastes like it meant it." You exhale. You didn't realize you were holding your breath. The others taste next. Some nod. One raises his eyebrows in impressed surprise. Another shrugs and says, "Still needs more salt but eats 2 more pieces anyway." One girl touches the edge of your stone gently with her palm. "It's got your memory now," she says. You blink. "My memory." She nods. Stones pick up your heat. If it likes you, it keeps a bit. You sit beside your fire and serve the last few breads. People take them gratefully. No big applause, just satisfaction. Acceptance. The quiet folding of a stranger into a tradition. Someone brings you a small bowl of hibiscus tea brewed with lemongrass and poured through a heated stone filter to add a trace of earthy bitterness. It's sharp, refreshing, and oddly grounding. You sip holding the bowl in both hands and look at your stone. It's no longer something you brought. It's something you've joined. Later, while helping to grind ginger for a curry paste, you hear a debate spark across the yard, this time about the spice stone. Apparently there's one in the village that brings out spice too early. You don't even taste the stew before your eyes water, one woman complains. Another laughs and says it's not the stone's fault, it's the cook's impatience. Historians still argue. Someone nearby adds playfully whether the spice stone was ever cursed or just dramatically overachieving. It becomes the joke of the day. Every time someone sneezes from a hot pepper, they blame the spice stone, even if it's nowhere near the kitchen. As the afternoon stretches long and golden, someone suggests making douce cocoa, a coconut sugar candy rolled while warm. But instead of boiling it in metal pots, the cooks want to try something different, heating the mix on a wide stone slab rubbed with oil and pressed with tiny wooden paddles. You're invited to help. You oil your stone gently, whispering thanks, like you've seen others do. The sugar mixture, thick, dark, sticky, is poured directly onto its flat surface. It bubbles, spreads, begins to darken. You stir with the edge of a spatula carved from breadfruit wood. The sugar thickens into threads. The air smells like caramel and campfire. Then carefully, you begin rolling small lengths of it into spirals. Not perfect, not even, but sweet and soft and smoky, like edible shadows of the day. Children rush over. Not for stories, now for sweets. You pass out the candy spirals, and one child asks if yours were made on the stone, the one that finally woke up. You nod. She holds her candy carefully, like it might whisper if she bites too soon. That evening, your stone is placed with the others beside the fire, ready for rest. Someone asks if you'll keep it when you leave. You look at it for a long time. Then say, "I don't think it's mine anymore." You're met with a smile. That means you've cooked here for real. The fire flickers. The tea cools. The bread is gone. And your stone glows softly, not because it's hot, but because finally it remembers. Night again, but not just another night. Tonight the village feels slower, deeper, like a page being turned more carefully than usual. Fires are lit later. Meals are simpler. Even the drumming, if it starts at all, feels more thoughtful than rhythmic. There's talk of the mountain. Not fear, just respect. The kind of talk that threads its way into soup recipes and stone placement decisions. The cooks are more deliberate. The children a little quieter. The air somehow thicker. You're sitting by one of the older fire pits, rearranging a few dry palm fronds for kindling. Your hands move without needing much thought, now stacking, layering, feeding fire in that way the villagers do, like they're encouraging an old friend to wake gently. Beside you, a man named Lucien, barefoot, bright-eyed, and always smelling faintly of garlic, tells you that years ago the volcano whispered in the middle of the night. Not with lava, not with smoke, with heat. He leans close. Stones in every hut got warm. Not hot, just warm. No one had cooked. No fires had been lit. And still the stones remembered something we hadn't taught them. You're about to ask if he's joking when a woman nearby chimes in. I had to open my windows. My breadstones made my kitchen sweat. You decide not to question the physics. In this village, some facts are truer than truth. Tonight's dish is bouillon bœuf, a thick beef stew with green bananas, dumplings, chunks of pumpkin, and a fistful of thyme. Normally it's a midday meal, but the cooks say it's better after dark when the stones aren't distracted. That's the word they use. Distracted. They focus better under moonlight, says Manmi Ju, who's already preparing her ring of heating stones. She selects 5-1 from each corner of the village's cooking shed and warms them evenly before placing the pot on top. You can help with the dumplings, she tells you. The dough is heavy, and stubborn water flour, grated yam, and a whisper of ginger. You roll it between your palms into oblong little slugs. Some crack. Some won't stay smooth. A boy beside you calls yours nervous dumplings. You glare. He shrugs. The stew bubbles slowly. Each ingredient enters at its appointed time, not by recipe, but by instinct. First, the beef already marinated in garlic and sour orange. Then the pumpkin to melt into the base. Then the bananas, the dumplings, the thyme. And finally, a single stone. Yes, a small volcanic pebble warmed beforehand and dropped into the center of the bubbling pot. You know better than to ask why. Someone nearby will just say, because it listens better from inside. The air fills with rich, savory scent. You can smell the beef softening the starch from the dumplings, thickening the broth, the thyme rising like an echo. A dog lays nearby, ears twitching. While it cooks, people begin to share mountain tales, some of them real, some of them less so. One woman swears she once saw steam curl from a pile of stones long after a fire had died. Another says she followed a trail of warm rocks to a cave where she found a pot still warm stew, half eaten, but no one in sight. Historians still argue whether these stories are metaphor or memory, whether the volcanic landscape actually caused strange geothermal happenings, or if the tales emerged from generations of communal repetition. In academic journals, such stories are footnotes. Here they are: dinner. The stew is ready. Thick, red-brown, filled with flavor you can smell from 10 paces. You help serve, ladling it into clay bowls, while steam rises and curls in the cool night air. One is placed in front of the drumming elder. He eats first. His face does not change. He lifts a second spoonful, then a third. Finally he says, "That stone listened well." You feel something relax in your chest. The others eat. Quiet at first, then louder, complimenting the beef, mocking each other's dumpling sizes. Someone claims the broth tastes better because of the wind tonight. Another says no, it's the moonlight. A third insists it's the ginger that kept the mountain in a good mood. After eating, the pots are cleaned. Not with harsh scrubbing, but with warm water and leaf ash. One woman sets the listening stone aside on a cloth and places a single drop of oil on it. To thank it, she says, "You feed the fire, but you nourish the stone. You do the same with your own stone. It's cool now, but carries a weight that's become familiar. When you hold it in your hands, it no longer feels like you're asking it for something. It feels like it's holding something for you." That night before sleep, a storm rolls over the horizon. Distant thunder, no rain. Just sound. The mountain grumbles, barely audible. You lay your stone beside you on your mat and whisper, "I'm listening." And the wind, or maybe something older, seems to say, "So am I." The next day dawns with a sky smeared in pink and orange clouds, curling at the edges like steam rising from the edge of a pot. The storm never came, but the mountain muttered all night, and everyone seems to have slept a little more lightly. You wake to the scent of wood smoke and breadfruit roasting, familiar now, almost comforting. Your stone resting at your side feels room temperature. Not cold, not forgotten. Just recharging. Today the village is preparing for a communal feast. Not a holiday exactly. No name for the occasion. Just a shared feeling that tonight is worth something extra. Maybe it's the air, someone says. Maybe the stones are asking. There's a buzz in the way people move, brisk focused, a little giddy. You help with setup, hauling water, peeling root vegetables, and grinding a mix of clove and salt in a wide mortar. Everyone seems to have a task, and yours changes constantly, like the village itself is shuffling the deck. Eventually, you're pulled aside to help build the long hearth, a trench dug into the dirt lined with flat stones designed to hold several pots at once. It's used only on special days when many hands need feeding and the stories require more space. You ask how deep to dig. One man responds, deep enough to remember, which somehow answers everything. Once the trench is cleared and lined with stones, fires are lit at either end. Heat begins to travel along the path, warming the center slowly, evenly. It's a clever design, low-tech, but deeply efficient. You learn that the method dates back generations, possibly to the Maroon communities, who cooked in hiding, needing warmth without smoke, sustenance without noise. Historians still argue a woman mutters while slicing sweet potatoes whether the design came from survival or invention. She shrugs. It's both. You're handed a shallow clay pot filled with a marinade the color of bronze, lime, garlic, cane vinegar, crushed hibiscus, and finely ground pimento. Chunks of fish soak in it, their silvery skins curling at the edges. You place the pot on the midsection of the hearth. It sizzles softly, the scent, immediate, sharp, unforgettable. Around you, other dishes begin taking shape. One group is forming tom-tom, mashed breadfruit dumplings, shaped into tight round balls and steamed on flat stones under banana leaves. Another is wrapping parcels of spiced cassava and okra in plantain leaves, tying them neatly with strips of dried coconut fiber. These are tucked into the embers like messages meant for the earth. Your own stone is placed beside the hearth, not in use but present. Several people pass by and glance at it, nodding slightly. One woman pauses, places her fingers on it for a moment, then walks on without saying a word. There's a rhythm to this day, a choreography of coals and conversation of hands moving in practiced silence. Even the children seem focused. A group of them sort stones by size and color, building a mock fire circle of their own, and arguing about which imaginary meal they're cooking. This one's for eagle soup, one girl declares proudly. As the feast nears completion, the music begins. First drums, then bamboo flutes, then voices, not lyrics at first, just tones. A hum that begins in the chest and spills into the hands. People start moving with it, stirring with the beat, stacking bowls with the melody. A man near the edge of the hearth grins and says, "If the pot doesn't dance, the stew will sulk." And the pots do dance, gently wobbling over the stones, hissing and popping with every shift in rhythm. One tips slightly. You reach to steady it, but the cook waves you off. "Let it find its balance," she says. Like we do, the feast is served as the sun folds itself into the mountain. Long woven mats are unrolled. Bowls are passed hand to hand. There are no formal toasts. Just shared bites, quiet praise, and laughter so thick it might as well be steam. You eat everything. Sticky dumplings dipped in pepper vinegar. Sweet cassava wrapped in charred leaf. Coconut slaw spiced with lime and ghost peppers that nearly make you weep. And then a final dish, yours. The fish. Your fish. Cooked low and slow in the middle of the hearth, cradled by stone and story. You lift a piece to your mouth, unsure what to expect. The flavor is layered, smoky first, then tangy, then something else entirely. Something deep, like salt, remembering where it came from. Someone asks what you call the recipe. You open your mouth to answer but stop. You don't know. You didn't invent it. You just listened. The elder woman seated cross-legged beside you says simply, "That one's called stone flavor." You nod. After the meal, the instruments quiet and a few people begin stacking the used cooking stones to cool. They don't pile them carelessly. They place each one like a thank you, soft, deliberate. You do the same with your stone. It's still warm, but this time it feels less like it belongs to you. and more like it belongs with you. As the sky darkens and stars emerge, someone lights a small clay bowl filled with orange peels and sugar, letting the smoke rise as a final offering. The scent carries upward bittersweet, almost citrusy sorrow. It marks the end of the feast. You sit beside your stone and place your hand on it one more time. No hum, no heat, just stillness. But in that stillness, you feel something else. Recognition. It knows you now. And you know what it means to cook not just for the mouth, but for memory. The morning after the feast is slower still, as if the entire village is moving through honey. People sleep later, waking one by one, blinking at the brightness. There's a gentle hangover of laughter-full bellies, and the afterglow of shared stories. You wake with your stone at your side now, as much a part of your routine as the air you breathe. You hold it briefly in your palm before rising, pressing your thumb into one of its familiar dimples. It's cool and heavy, a little dusty, and strangely comforting. Outside, smoke rises in lazy ribbons from a few breakfast fires. Today, there's no rush. No long preparations or communal projects. Just simple food, mashed yam, sweet plantain, weak coffee laced with burnt sugar, and a handful of leftover cassava dumplings, fried on stones until golden and crisp. You help with the frying, watching the stones heat up, slowly radiating a steady warmth. There's less conversation this morning. People speak in soft tones as if not to disturb something sacred left lingering in the air. A young girl sits beside you, swinging her legs, peeling a mango with quick, practiced hands. She glances at your stone. "Are you taking it when you go?" she asks. You pause, considering the question. "I don't know," you admit. "Maybe it stays here." She nods, wise beyond her years. Some stones are for journeys. Some are for staying. You hand her a piece of fried dumpling, and she grins, her cheeks sticky with mango juice. She places your stone on her knee and hums softly, then hands it back as if she's returning a treasure. "It likes you," she says. You listened. You carry that phrase with you all morning. Later, you join a group heading to the river to wash pots and stones. The work is slow, almost ceremonial. Each stone is washed, rinsed, and then set in the sun to dry. Some are polished gently with leaves or a dab of coconut oil. Small acts of care you now understand as ritual, not just maintenance. While you work, someone asks about your home. What kind of stones you have. What you cook with. It's hard to explain ovens, stovetops, and electric kettles in a way that makes sense here, where flavor is born from memory and heat is earned, not switched on. You try anyway, describing your world. There are a few raised eyebrows, some laughter, but no judgment, just curiosity, and a little sympathy for anyone who's never cooked over a real stone. The topic shifts as conversations here often due to memories of food. Someone recalls a stew so spicy that even the village dogs refuse the leftovers. Another remembers a bread so heavy it sank when thrown into the river. Everyone laughs. Historians would love this, oral histories tumbling out between handfuls of wet stones and soapy pots. There are debates over which ancestor invented the mango pepper jam, or whether coconut should ever be mixed with onions. The consensus sometimes, but not often. You realize these aren't just memories. They're recipes in disguise. When the pots are clean and the stones dry, you head back to the village, arms full, feeling content, and just a little sunburned. There's a nap in your future, but first, you wander past the place where the older stones are stored, the stone bed. You stop to say a silent thank you, letting your fingers brush the rounded backs of stones now retired from duty. Each one has a story, and you sense that if you stayed long enough, you'd learn every last one. By afternoon, a gentle breeze sweeps through the village, carrying with it the scent of river and green things growing. Someone brews a pot of herbal tea, and you're handed a cup before you even ask. You sit under a tree, back against the trunk, your stone in your lap, and sip slowly. A quiet satisfaction fills you. You think about all the hands that shaped this meal, all the fires that lit this food, all the stones that held its heat. You realize suddenly and completely that nothing here is ever done alone. And that perhaps is what the stones remember best, as the sun begins its slow descent behind the hills, painting everything gold and copper. A hush settles over the village, not out of exhaustion, but contentment. It's a silence filled with the residue of stories, the memory of flavors, and the sleepy warmth of sun-soaked stones. Tonight's dinner is simple rice, a pot of beans, a bit of leftover fish from the feast, and of course, more flatbread cooked on stones still fragrant from the morning's fires. No fanfare, no fuss. You've learned that the most satisfying meals here are the ones that arrive quietly, carrying the comfort of routine. You help shape the bread, patting out discs of dough and placing them carefully onto the heated stones. The rhythm is familiar now. Place, weight, flip, brush away, a wisp of ash, repeat. A few children gather to watch, eager to snag a piece of bread as soon as it's done. One little boy insists he can hear the bread singing on the stone. You lean in, listening, and realize he's not wrong. The gentle hiss and crackle has its own sleepy melody. As the bread cooks, someone nearby starts telling a story about the blue stones. According to legend, on certain nights when the volcano's shadow stretches far, and the air is still, some stones glow faint blue in the dark. Not hot, not cold, but lit from within like the memory of old lightning. It means the mountain is dreaming, the storyteller whispers. The children shiver with delight, and even the adults seem a little quieter for a moment. Historians, you're told, still debate whether there's any truth to the blue stones. Some say it's a trick of moonlight on certain minerals, others that it's wishful thinking or clever storytelling. No one here seems to mind either way. The legend is nourishment enough. The rice finishes, steam swirling as you lift the lid and you help portion it into bowls. The beans are ladled over the top, the leftover fish divided with care, and the bread broken into pieces to be shared around the fire. Someone brings a small dish of pickled mango, spicy and bright, to cut through the richness. You eat slowly, savoring each bite. There's no rush. Conversations are muted, but pleasant small jokes. Memories of past meals, hopes for rain, plans for the next gathering. Someone asks you about your favorite food from home, and you try to describe it, but your words fall short. It's hard to explain nostalgia in a language shaped by volcanic earth and patient stone. After the meal, the cleanup is unhurried. Everyone helps. Stones are washed. Pots are rinsed. Breadcrumbs swept away for the chickens. The fire is banked for the night, embers left to smolder until morning. Your stone is set aside with the others, wrapped gently in a piece of cloth. As dusk deepens, the elders gather to share one last tale, a story about a fisherman who cooked with a stone he found in the river. They say the meals he made brought peace to anyone who ate them, and that the stone still rests somewhere in these hills, waiting for another cook to find it. You listen, cradling your cup of herbal tea, and feel the day's work settle into your bones. There's a quiet pride in being included, a feeling you'll carry long after you leave. The night thickens, the stars blink awake, and you drift toward sleep with the sound of stones cooling and the memory of bread singing in your ears. Another morning. You wake with the taste of stone-cooked bread still lingering on your tongue, and the low, restful ache in your muscles that only comes from honest work and long, gentle meals. The sky is washed pale with dawn. A breeze stirs, fluttering the edges of mats and sending a single palm leaf skittering across the ground. Today the rhythm feels different. There's a sense of winding down, like the village knows your stay is coming to an end, and everyone's pace has shifted into a slower, more savoring mode. The greetings are softer, the tasks smaller, and the conversations tinged with that sweet sadness reserved for goodbyes you don't quite want to say. Breakfast is modest hot cornmeal, porridge flecked with grated coconut, and a touch of lime zest cooked in a battered pot resting on a trio of small stones. The scent is rich, sharp, and somehow nostalgic. You help serve, ladling creamy spoonfuls into clay bowls. The children cluster around, adding extra sugar or splashes of pepper sauce, mixing sweet and heat without hesitation. You join the others beneath the old breadfruit tree to eat. Conversation drifts from the practical whose turn it is to fetch water to the whimsical. Someone wonders aloud if the mountain will grumble again tonight. Another asks what your own kitchen back home looks like. You try to answer describing city sounds and metal pots and stoves that turn on with a click. There are smiles and a few gentle laughs, but no judgment. Just that same steady curiosity. After breakfast, you help with chores. Some villagers are gathering firewood, others tending goats. You join the group assigned to sweep the cooking area and tidy the stone beds. You notice that the retired stones have been arranged into shapes, spirals, rings, even a heart. It's a quiet act of affection honoring objects that gave years of service and flavor. Later, you sit with a few elders as they sort through baskets of spices and dried herbs, planning which will be used for the evening meal. They let you choose a few dried thyme, orange peel, a stick of cinnamon. The smell is dizzying, each herb telling its own tiny history. A heated discussion springs up about stone charms, little tokens, or marks some cooks carve into their favorite stones for luck. Some say the practice is ancient, others that it started after a particularly bad harvest. Historians still argue. One woman says with a wry smile, whether stone charms actually work or just make us feel clever. But no one's willing to risk a meal without them. A little later, as the sun rises higher, you take a walk to the river, stone in hand. The path is familiar now, past the goat pen, through the papaya grove, over the bridge of fallen logs. You sit by the water, watching it ripple over polished rocks and driftwood, and wonder how many stones have passed through these hands, these fires, these meals. You remember the first awkward day when every movement felt uncertain and every question seemed naive. Now, as you sit by the water's edge, the stone in your palm feels not just like a tool, but a companion. It has absorbed your story, just as you've absorbed its lessons. Patience, attention, respect for process, and the pleasure of letting time do its work. On your way back to the village, you meet a group of children gathering small pebbles from the riverbed. For luck, they say. For tomorrow's stew. They hand you one, a speckled, oddly shaped pebble. So you remember us, a girl says, pressing it into your hand. You tuck it beside your warm stone, feeling the gentle, persistent tug of memory forming even before you leave. That afternoon, the wind picks up, scattering the scent of burning leaves and pepper sauce through the village. Lunch is light leftover rice and beans, a handful of fried plantains, a cup of spiced tea. Everyone eats together, laughter mingling with birdsong and the distant, ever-present rumble of the mountain. And you realize with a sleepy certainty that you will always taste this place in every meal you cook again, wherever you are. The sun tilts low again, pouring honey-colored light over the village and making every hut, stone and bowl shine like it's been burnished by gentle hands. Today's chores have slowed to a crawl. There's no rush for anything, just the urge to stretch out the moments before they dissolve. This afternoon, you sit with the cooks as they prepare the last big meal of your stay. It's a community effort, fish caught that morning, fresh yams and sweet potatoes, wild greens, and at the center an arrangement of hand-picked stones, each selected for the dish it will help create. You're given the honor of choosing the heating stones for the main pot. You kneel by the pile, running your fingers over smooth, pitted, and strangely familiar surfaces. Each one tells a silent story, worn grooves, bits of charcoal, a scratch that looks suspiciously like a lizard. You select 3, one flat and broad for steady heat, one round for holding warmth, one small and quick for a burst of fire when needed. There's a quiet ceremony as you place them in the hearth, guided by nods and murmurs of approval. Someone pours water into the big iron pot. Another adds handfuls of chopped greens. Someone else slides marinated fish in, letting it sink into the green and gold. The children scatter sliced yams around the edge, and the pot is covered with a battered lid. The heat rises slowly. You sit close, feeling the warmth on your knees, watching the pot steam and sigh. Around you, people peel vegetables, braid strips of coconut, slice mango for dessert. The air is rich with anticipation, and the layered scents of lime garlic and roasting root. As the meal simmers, an elder begins to tell stories not loudly, but with that unhurried cadence you've come to love. She recalls a winter when the village stones all split after a long drought, and every cook had to learn the lesson of patience again. Another tale is about a family whose stew never spoiled no matter how long it sat, because they fed the stone first every time. Historians still argue whether there's truth to these stories, or if they're just ways to teach new cooks how to respect their materials. You suspect it's both. After all, you've learned more from these tales than any recipe. A breeze picks up fluttering the leaves in the breadfruit tree. You watch the children's game, balancing warm pebbles on their heads and racing to the river's edge. Someone jokes that whoever drops their pebble has to wash every pot tonight. The meal is almost ready. You help uncover the pot, careful not to spill any precious broth. The steam is fragrant, thick with promise. Bowls are passed around and everyone gathers in a wide circle beneath the tree. You take your place, stone-warmed bowl in hand, and dip your spoon into the deep green stew. The first taste is bright and herbal, the second earthy, the third almost sweet. Somewhere in the middle, you notice a warmth that's not just from the spices, but from the stone itself, something slow, steady, woven into every bite. As the meal winds down, someone brings out a little bottle of homemade rum. Tiny glasses are passed around for a toast. One to the cooks, one to the mountain, and one to the stones that remember more than we do. You lift your glass, feeling the sting of tears in your eyes and the heat in your chest, and echo the toast. As evening falls and the dishes are cleaned, you walk once more to the stone bed, where the oldest and most honored cooking stones rest. You add a pebble, the one the children gave you, to the collection, pressing it into a groove between two larger rocks. It settles in perfectly. You sit there a while, fingers tracing the names and marks carved into stone, feeling the weight of goodbyes start to build. Someone sits beside you, a friend now, not just a teacher. They say nothing, just share the quiet, letting the crickets and night breeze fill the silence. You watch the first stars appear, thinking how some places never really let you go, no matter how far you travel. And as the darkness deepens, you promise yourself that wherever you cook next, you'll let the stones remember for you. Your final full day in the village moves with the slow, dreamy ease of a song at its last chorus. Every step you take, every glance exchanged with a villager carries the gentle weight of leave-taking. There's no need to hurry. Everyone knows how to say goodbye here, little by little, meal by meal, with more smiles than words. Breakfast is quiet. You join the cooks for one last morning at the fire, kneading dough for flatbread and slicing mangoes for a simple fruit salad. Your stone, familiar and warm from the night, sits with the others, ready to serve, not clinging or complaining. You brush a bit of ash from its side, then tuck it into the fire ring, feeling its warmth answer yours. As you work, a boy asks if you'll remember how to light the fire the old way when you return home. You grin and say you'll try, but you know it won't be quite the same. Your hands have changed, though they know how to coax a spark, how to sense when the heat is right, how to trust the patient rhythm of a stone warming up. The cooks let you lead today, guiding the group in stacking the stones, building the fire, and layering the food in the pot. You feel their trust settle on your shoulders, light and reassuring. You lay a hand on your stone before placing the pot, one last thanks. While breakfast simmers, a group of elders sits nearby, weaving strips of palm into baskets and trading memories about first meals cooked alone. Each story is different: burned bread, forgotten salt, laughter and learning. But everyone comes back to the same point. It's not about the food, but the care and courage to begin. As you eat together, people share little gifts: braided bracelets, a carved spoon, a packet of dried herbs, a folded leaf pouch filled with tiny river pebbles for luck. You're given a new nickname, Stonehand, because, as one girl says, your bread didn't stick even once. Later, you spend time with the children by the river, skipping stones and inventing songs about the mountain, the fire, and the ever-listening stones. One child insists she can hear the water talking to the stones. No one corrects her. The afternoon passes with chores, laughter, and the slow gathering of ingredients for your final supper. You help grind spices, slice plantains, and stack wood. Your stone is washed, oiled, and set by the fire one last time. As the meal cooks, you and the others sit in a circle watching the flames dance and the sky deepen to dusk. The mountain is a quiet shadow, the air full of voices and the music of crickets. Someone passes around cups of sweet spiced tea, and an elder thanks the stones for holding the memory of good hands. Supper is served as the last light slips behind the trees. It tastes of farewell, deeply spiced, earthy, and comforting. The food is passed from hand to hand. No one leaves until every bowl is empty. When the meal is finished, you help wash up your movements, slow, almost ceremonial. The stone you've come to know so well is set gently with the others, still warm, gleaming faintly in the fire's afterglow. You walk the village's footpaths one last time, every step a goodbye and a promise. As darkness wraps the hills, you sit with your hosts beneath the stars, your stone in your lap, and listen to the final stories. Old tales, new hopes, and the quiet wisdom that only comes from cooking together over patient listening stones. The morning of your departure arrives with the slow hush of dawn sunlight peeling gently over the hills. The village moves quietly, as if not wanting to wake you too soon. You lie on your mat listening to the soft thud of feet, the clink of stones being set for a final breakfast, the faraway call of a rooster you now know by voice. When you rise, your stone is waiting by your side, washed and wrapped in a scrap of cloth. You carry it out to the fire ring where the cooks are already gathered. Someone hands you a bowl of warm millet porridge, simple, hearty, subtly smoky from the stones used to heat it. You eat slowly, savoring each bite, each moment. No one rushes you. The goodbyes come in their own time. A hand on your shoulder, a basket of fruit pressed into your arms, a shy scribbled drawing from one of the children. The old woman with the carved cane meets your gaze, her eyes bright. The stone listened to you, she says. It will remember. So will we. You help tidy the kitchen, wipe ash from the stones, and stack wood for the next meal. Each motion feels important, final, but never rushed. As you prepare to leave, the villagers gather in the clearing, forming a loose circle. You stand in the center, stone cradled in your hands. Someone asks what you'll do with it now. You pause, considering. I'll keep it until I find a place where it feels at home, you say. Or until I need reminding how to cook with patience. A ripple of approval passes through the group. The elder smiles. That's all any of us can do. Before you go, you walk to the stone bed and press your river pebble from the children into a small hollow between two old stones. A quiet offering, a way to leave a bit of your story behind. One last time you stand in the heart of the village, breathing the sense of earth, fire, and memory. You feel the warmth of the stone in your hand, a gentle, reassuring weight. Someone calls after you. Come back when you forget how to listen. You laugh, waving as you head up the path toward the hills. The mountain behind you, the stone warm in your palm. The journey ahead feels different now, slower, more attentive, rooted in the patience of earth and flame. And wherever you go, you know this: some memories are heavy, but they make you lighter. So now, as you settle in, let your body sink into stillness. Picture the sleepy village fading into twilight, the last fires dimming, and the cooking stones cooling beneath the stars. The air softens, heavy with the scent of roasted breadfruit, sweet herbs, and earth still warm from the day. You can imagine the villagers moving slowly, stowing bowls, brushing crumbs from mats, placing their favorite stones in neat little rows. There's no rush, just a gentle closing of another day, another meal, another story. The mountain in the distance is a dark, patient outline. The breeze so calm and even whispers through the palms. In the hush, even the animals seem to sleep lighter, as if they too are remembering each flavor. The stones, those quiet keepers of heat and history, rest at last, wrapped in cloth or lined in cool earth. Their warmth lingers but gently, like the memory of a hand that once held yours, or the echo of a song almost forgotten, but never truly gone. In the quiet, You might hear the soft crackle of cooling stones or the fading laughter of cooks spinning stories by firelight. Let that image hold you. The deep grounding patience of earth and time, the comfort of community, and the sweet, honest flavor of meals cooked with intention. Every breath you take, let it be slow and full. Let your own story, like those village stones, settle softly tonight, carrying only what you wish to remember, leaving you light and at ease. And as you drift off, trust that wherever you are, you carry a bit of warmth from those old volcano stones with you always.